All right, let's jump right into this explainer on the absolute chaos currently unfolding in the Philippines Senate. I mean, we're talking international arrest warrants, a literally unbelievable midnight escape, and now a massive, high stakes battle over the very rules that govern how lawmakers do their jobs.
So, we really need to unpack the wild events of May 2026. Because honestly, it reads straight out of a political thriller. Think about it. How in the world does a sitting senator, who is actively wanted as a fugitive, manage to evade capture inside one of the most heavily guarded buildings in the entire country? And then, the absolute kicker, how does he immediately try to rewrite the legislative rules from an undisclosed hiding spot just so he can keep voting?
Just look at how this 3-day standoff played out. It is wild. It kicks off on May 11th. Our wanted senator, who's dodging an international criminal court warrant for crimes against humanity, somehow sneaks into the Senate. His goal? To cast a deciding vote in a leadership coup. By May 13th, the National Bureau of Investigation is actually inside the building trying to serve the warrant. This leads to a literal chase up the concrete stairs, complete with warning gunshots echoing inside the GSIS building. And then the grand finale. 2:30 a.m. on May 14th, a multi-vehicle midnight escape where the fugitive slips away into the night in a white SUV.
Now, zooming out for a second, at the absolute center of all this is a massively complex legal battle over that ICC warrant. The fugitive senator is, of course, actively evading it, making the argument that domestic courts should be the ones handling his case. And there is a real legal debate here regarding the lack of specific domestic laws for surrendering a citizen to a foreign tribunal. But setting the courtroom drama aside, what's happening right now on the Senate floor is a desperate, frantic scramble by his political allies. They are doing everything they can to keep his legislative power completely intact while he's off the grid.
And how exactly are they trying to protect him? By pushing a highly controversial procedural loophole. Right now, Senate Rule 14 is pretty clear. It mandates physical attendance. Remote voting is only on the table for a body-wide force majeure or a national emergency, something like the COVID-19 pandemic. But this newly proposed amendment, it aims to tear that wide open, allowing senators just log in virtually and vote for practically any individual justifiable reason. But here's the thing you really need to understand. This amendment doesn't just help our one fugitive, not even close. It essentially creates a digital sanctuary for multiple lawmakers facing very serious charges. We're talking about other senators in the majority bloc staring down heavy, non-bailable offenses like plunder and graft. If they get arrested or detained, passing this rule change means they can still govern, they can still cast crucial votes, and they hold on to their power with literally zero physical accountability. It is a tailor-made legal shield.
And to try and push this through, one unnamed majority lawmaker took to social media to aggressively defend the move, and this was before the amendment even passed. He actually went online and claimed that the Senate doesn't even need to change the rules at all because current global conflicts and, get this, weather forecasts already count as a force majeure. He literally argued that geopolitical tension thousands of miles away in the Middle East is a perfectly valid legal excuse for a fugitive to vote via webcam. Just incredible.
Well, unfortunately for him, Philippine law is actually very strict about how it defines force majeure. Under Article 1174 of the Civil Code, it absolutely requires an unforeseeable or inevitable event. Basically, an act of God that makes it absolutely physically impossible for someone to perform their duties. And the most crucial part? There has to be a complete and total absence of human fault or human will involved.
So, as you can imagine, legal experts universally rejected that lawmaker's argument right out of the gate. They were quick to point out the obvious. A legitimate force majeure is something like a pandemic lockdown that legally and physically prevents you from traveling to the Senate building. But actively running from law enforcement, getting involved in a shootout, hiding out to dodge an international arrest warrant, those are 100% deliberate human choices. That is an act of man, definitely not an act of God.
And let's do a quick reality check here. Experts also pointed out the geographic absurdity of the claim. Wars in the Middle East do not somehow magically create a physical barrier stopping a senator from commuting to Pasay City. Plus, the sheer irony here is that the very same lawmakers claiming these global crises are stopping them from working, well, they actually had perfect in-person attendance all year, literally right up until the exact moment their ally needed to escape an arrest warrant. Unsurprisingly, this attempt to redefine basic law was met with some serious mockery.
fellow lawmakers just ruthlessly tore into the defense. Senator Panfilo Lacson absolutely hit the nail on the head, calling it exactly what it was, an unforced error. Nobody bought it as a valid legal argument. It was universally viewed as a completely self-inflicted political embarrassment.
But okay, let's play devil's advocate. Assuming the majority actually manages to force this amendment through despite all the mockery, we've got to ask a highly practical question. Can a webcam actually save a fugitive? Like, is hopping on a teleconference call actually an accepted legal defense for someone evading justice? The short answer, absolutely not. No way.
And here is the ultimate ironic twist in all of this. It's not a defense at all. It's actually a massive vulnerability. The Philippine National Police have already come out publicly and stated they fully plan to use these exact virtual attendance links against the fugitive. Think about it. If he logs in to cast a vote, police cyber units will just intercept that live connection, trace his IP address, and immediately pinpoint his exact physical location to go execute the arrest. So this grand digital sanctuary idea, it's really just a digital trap. But while we're watching this incredible high-stakes game of political cat and mouse unfold, we really need to take a step back and look at the collateral damage. Because we have to ask ourselves, who does this entire spectacle actually serve? Why is the entire Philippine Senate completely paralyzed over this one single issue? Well, critics are heavily arguing that the Senate is blatantly prioritizing political self-preservation over the actual needs of the Filipino people. While the majority bloc is wasting incredibly valuable legislative time fighting for these rule loopholes just to help their allies evade justice, the people's interests are completely abandoned. For example, crucial life-saving legislation like the major anti-online sexual abuse and exploitation of children bill is just sitting there, completely stalled out on the Senate floor. And if that wasn't bad enough, this procedural battle is setting a ridiculously dangerous precedent just weeks before a massive national event. On July 6, 2026, the Senate is scheduled to convene as an impeachment court for the vice president's highly anticipated trial. And in that scenario, literally every single vote in that chamber is going to be absolutely critical. Prosecutors are urgently warning that allowing remote voting during a high-stakes trial like this completely undermines the solemnity of the court. Representative Lordan summed it up perfectly. An impeachment demands full presence, full attention, and most importantly, full accountability. Allowing senator judges to evaluate hard evidence and cast historically significant verdicts from some hidden, remote location, that completely robs the public of the transparency they deserve. The public backlash to this whole scheme has been so severe that even the executive branch had to step in. President Marcos Jr. formally rejected the digital sanctuary concept, making it crystal clear. A fugitive of justice should absolutely not be granted the privilege of voting while in hiding. The message is simple. If a lawmaker wants to wield the massive power of their office and cast a vote, they have to face the risks, step out of the shadows, and physically show up on the Senate floor. So this all leaves us with a massive, provocative question about the very future of legislative accountability. Will the Senate uphold its integrity and demand actual physical presence? Or are they going to manipulate the rules to create these digital sanctuaries, basically proving that the law simply doesn't apply to the people who write it? It's a full-blown constitutional crisis, and you can bet we'll be watching it very, very closely. All right. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. If you found this breakdown of the Senate crisis helpful and want to stay on top of this rapidly developing story, please make sure to hit that like button, leave a comment with your thoughts on the whole situation, and of course, subscribe to the channel for more focused deep dives into complex topics. Catch you in the next one.